Mommy, it's me. I'm alive. Victoria Sterling froze in front of the grave. The bouquet of white lilies slipped from her fingers and fell onto the wet grass. The fine November rain soaked her black cashmere coat, but she didn't feel cold. She felt nothing but the shock that paralyzed every muscle in her body. A black girl of about 8 years old stood on the other side of the headstone. Two thin, old clothes soaked through, torn sneakers showing her toes. She was shivering from cold, but her brown eyes were fixed on Victoria with an intensity that made hearts stop. "What did you say?" Victoria could barely speak. "I said it's me. I'm Lily. Your daughter." Victoria looked at the headstone between them. The name carved into the cold stone, Lily Sterling. Beloved forever. 2017 to 2020. 5 years. It had been exactly 5 years since the fire at the country house in Vermont. 5 years since Victoria had buried that coffin that was too small, too light. 5 years of waking up in the middle of the night screaming her daughter's name. 5 years of visiting this same grave every 15th of each month, the day her world had crumbled. Victoria was 47 now, but she looked like she had aged 2 decades since the tragedy. The blonde hair that once shone on magazine covers now had white strands she no longer bothered to hide. The blue eyes that once conveyed confidence in business meetings now carried a permanent sadness that no $1 billion could erase. "This isn't possible." Victoria shook her head, her voice coming out strange, as if it belonged to someone else. "My daughter died. I buried my daughter." "No, you didn't, Mommy. You buried someone else." The girl took a step forward, limping slightly on her right leg. That's when Victoria saw the scar behind her left ear. A crescent moon-shaped mark, light pink against dark skin. The world spun. Victoria had to lean on the headstone to keep from falling. Lily had an identical scar since she was 6 months old, from a fall from her crib. Victoria remembered that day like it was yesterday. The baby's scream, the blood, the desperate rush to the hospital, the tiny stitches that left that mark forever. A mark that only Victoria and the pediatrician knew about. A mark that never appeared in any photo, in any public document. "How do you know about my perfume?" Victoria asked, testing, needing to be sure, needing not to go insane. "White flowers. Jasmine and gardenia. You put it on every night before putting me to bed. You said it was so I would dream about beautiful gardens full of butterflies." Victoria's heart raced. Nobody knew this. Nobody. And the song. Her voice failed, breaking in the middle. "What song did I sing?" The girl closed her eyes for a second, as if searching for the memory somewhere deep in her mind. Then she began to hum. A simple melody, almost silly, about shooting stars and cotton candy dreams. A song Victoria had made up during a late night of colic when Lily was 2 months old. A song she had never sung to anyone else in her entire life. A song that should have died with her daughter. Victoria's legs gave way. She fell to her knees in the wet cemetery ground, her black dress sinking into the mud, rain running down her face, but none of that mattered. Nothing else mattered. "My God." Hot tears mixed with the cold rain. "My God, it's you. It's really you." The girl ran to her and threw herself into Victoria's arms. A desperate, tight, wet embrace. 2 bodies trembling together, 5 years of separation trying to dissolve in that single moment. They were both crying so hard they could barely breathe. "I looked for you for so long, Mommy. So long. I knew you would come here. I waited every 15th hidden behind that big tree." Victoria pulled back to look at her daughter better, her hands trembling as they touched the thin cheeks, the tangled curly hair, the lips cracked from cold. The features had changed, matured, lost the baby fat. But the eyes were the same. Brown, large, with that spark of someone who has seen too much for their age. How did you survive? Why didn't anyone find you? Where have you been all this time?" Lily lowered her gaze. Her small body shuddered, and it wasn't just from cold. "Someone took me from the house before the fire, Mommy. Someone who said you didn't want me anymore. That you were ashamed of me because I was different." Victoria felt her stomach turn. Who? Who said that?" The girl took a while to answer. When she spoke, her voice came out in a fragile whisper. "Aunt Patricia." The name hit Victoria like a punch to the stomach. Patricia. Her own younger sister. The same Patricia who had insisted on taking care of Lily that night because Victoria had an emergency meeting in New York. The same Patricia who had miraculously escaped the fire without a scratch while a 3-year-old child supposedly burned to death. The same Patricia who had comforted Victoria at the funeral, holding her hand, wiping her tears. What no one knew was that Patricia Sterling had 2 million reasons to want Lily to disappear forever. $2 million she owed to very dangerous people. And a niece who, as Victoria's sole heir, was the only obstacle between her and a $3 billion fortune. Victoria didn't let go of Lily's hand the entire way to the car. She was afraid that if she let go, the girl would disappear like smoke, like in the nightmares she had every night for 5 years. The driver's eyes widened when he saw his boss covered in mud getting into the Mercedes with a street child, but he said nothing. He had worked for Victoria for 15 years and knew she owed explanations to no one. Home, Thomas. Quickly. In the back seat, Victoria took off her own coat and wrapped it around Lily, who was shivering non-stop. The girl was nothing but bones. You could feel every rib through the thin fabric of the wet clothes. Where did you live, my love? Where were you all this time? Lily snuggled against Victoria's body like a lost puppy that finally found its mother. At first, Aunt Patricia took me to an old house far from here. There was a woman there, Mrs. Gertrude. She took care of me, but it wasn't really taking care of me. It was more like watching me. I couldn't go out, couldn't talk to anyone. Victoria closed her eyes, trying to control the nausea. And then, after a while, Mrs. Gertrude got sick and died. Aunt Patricia showed up one night and took me somewhere else. An orphanage in Ohio. She left me there with a fake name and never came back. What name? Nina Parker. They said my parents had died in a car accident and that I had no more family. 5 years. Her daughter had spent 5 years living as someone else, thinking her own mother didn't want her. Victoria felt a rage so intense she could barely breathe. How did you remember me? You were only 3 when everything happened. Lily pulled something from the pocket of her torn pants. A laminated piece of paper, worn at the edges, clearly handled thousands of times. It was a photo. Victoria held the paper with trembling hands. In the photo, she appeared holding baby Lily in her arms, both of them smiling. Victoria remembered that day. It was Lily's first birthday, the party in the mansion's garden, the pink cake with butterflies. I hid this photo under the mattress at the orphanage. I looked at it every night before falling asleep. I never forgot your face, Mommy. Never. Victoria hugged her daughter tightly, the tears falling again. They arrived at the mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. The enormous white house with perfectly manicured gardens looked like a fairy tale castle. Lily looked at everything with wide eyes. I remember this house. I remember the swing in the garden. You used to push me and I would scream higher, higher. Victoria's heart tightened. The swing was still there. She had never been able to have it removed. Inside the house, she gave Lily a hot bath, dressed her in clothes she had kept in an untouched closet for 5 years, and put her to sleep in her old room. The room still had the pink walls, the stuffed animals, the LED moon that projected stars on the ceiling. Lily fell asleep in seconds, exhausted. Victoria sat on the edge of the bed, holding her daughter's hand, unable to stop crying. 2 hours later, she went down to the office and called the only person she truly trusted. Dr. Samuel Rhodes, the family lawyer for 30 years, the man who had handled all the paperwork for Lily's adoption. Samuel, I need you here. Now. It's urgent. The lawyer arrived in less than an hour. When Victoria told him what had happened, the 60-year-old man turned pale as paper. Victoria, if this is true, your sister committed kidnapping, identity fraud. We're talking about decades in prison. I know. And I want her to pay for every second she stole from me and my daughter. We need evidence. DNA test first, to officially confirm it's Lily. Then we need to investigate the orphanage, this Mrs. Gertrude, every trace Patricia left. Victoria nodded. But there was something the lawyer didn't know. Something Victoria had discovered 2 years after the fire, when she finally had the strength to go through her sister's financial documents. Patricia had withdrawn $2 million from an emergency fund Victoria had created for her. A fund that could only be accessed if Victoria died, or if Victoria's only direct heir no longer existed. At the time, Victoria thought it had been a bank error. Now she understood everything. Patricia hadn't kidnapped Lily out of cruelty. She had kidnapped her for money. Victoria's daughter was an obstacle to the inheritance. And her sister had removed that obstacle in the most monstrous way possible, by making everyone believe the child was dead. But Patricia had made a mistake. She had left Lily alive. And now, 5 years later, the truth was about to destroy everything she had built on that lie. What Patricia didn't know was that the orphanage in Ohio kept detailed records. Records with photos, dates, and the full name of the woman who had left a 3-year-old black girl at the door on a winter night. The DNA test was ready in 48 hours. Victoria paid a fortune to speed up the process, but she would have paid 10 times more if necessary. Genetic compatibility confirmed. Lily Sterling is the biological daughter registered through legal adoption by Victoria Sterling. Victoria's hands trembled as she held the document. It was official. Her daughter was alive. Her daughter had come back. Dr. Samuel worked non-stop for 3 days. He hired private investigators, obtained court orders, searched through every record Patricia had tried to erase. And what they found was worse than Victoria had imagined. The Santa Maria orphanage in Ohio had everything documented. Security photos showing Patricia leaving a 3-year-old black girl at the door on a December night. Forms filled out in her handwriting, using a fake name. And most importantly, a bank transfer of $5,000 to the orphanage director, clearly a bribe to not ask questions. But there was more. Much more. The investigation revealed that the body buried in Lily's grave was another child. A homeless girl without family, who had died of hypothermia that same week in Vermont. Patricia had paid the coroner to falsify the identification. She had bought the silence of everyone who could talk. Victoria felt her stomach turn when she found out. Another child. A girl no one looked for, no one cried for, buried with her daughter's name while Lily rotted in an orphanage in Ohio. Everything is ready, Dr. Samuel said on the morning of the 4th day. The federal police are involved. Child kidnapping, fraud, bribery of a public official, document falsification. Patricia will spend the rest of her life in prison. Not yet. Victoria looked out the office window. First, I want to look her in the eyes. I want her to know it was her own niece who destroyed her. That afternoon, Victoria organized a family lunch at the mansion. She called Patricia as if nothing had happened. Patty, it's been a while since we've seen each other. Come have lunch with me tomorrow. I need my sister. Patricia accepted without hesitation. Of course she accepted. She still thought she was safe. She still thought the secret was buried along with that small coffin. The next day, Patricia arrived driving her white Porsche, wearing Gucci sunglasses and a designer dress. She lived well for someone who supposedly had debts. Victoria now knew where the money came from. She had embezzled another $3 million from her sister's company over the last 5 years, little by little, without raising suspicion. Vicky, darling. Patricia entered smiling, arms open for a hug. Victoria didn't move. Sit down, Patricia. We need to talk. Patricia's smile wavered for a second, but she composed herself. Is everything okay? You seem tense. Sit down. Patricia sat on the living room sofa. Victoria remained standing, arms crossed. I found something interesting at the cemetery last week. What? My daughter. Patricia's face went white. For a second, the mask fell completely. Pure fear crossed her eyes before she could compose herself. Vicky, what are you talking about? You know that Lily is alive. Is here. In this house. As if on cue, Lily appeared at the top of the stairs. Clean, well-dressed, healthy. But her brown eyes were fixed on Patricia with an intensity that would make any adult back away. Hi, Aunt Patricia. Lily's voice was pure ice. Do you remember me? Do you remember when you said my mother didn't want me anymore because I was black? Patricia jumped to her feet, her body trembling. This is crazy. This girl is an imposter. Someone is trying to scam you, Victoria. You can't believe. I have the DNA test. Victoria threw the document on her sister's lap. I have the security photos from the orphanage. I have the bank records showing the bribes. I have everything, Patricia. The mask finally fell. Patricia looked toward the door, calculating the distance, but it was too late. 2 federal agents entered through the kitchen door. 2 more appeared in the hallway. Patricia Sterling, you are under arrest for child kidnapping, fraud, document falsification, and obstruction of justice. Victoria, please. Patricia fell to her knees, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. I'm your sister. I was desperate. I owed money to dangerous people. They were going to kill me if I didn't pay. I had no choice. Victoria crouched down to eye level with her sister. Her voice came out calm, controlled, deadly cold. You had a choice. You could have asked me for help. I would have given you any amount. But instead, you stole my daughter. You made me believe she was dead. You made me bury another child thinking it was my baby. 5 years, Patricia. 5 years of hell. Victoria stood up and turned her back. Take her away. Patricia screamed, begged, cried as the agents dragged her outside. Lily watched everything from the top of the stairs, gripping the railing tightly. When the door closed and silence returned, Victoria climbed the stairs and hugged her daughter. It's over, my love. She will never hurt you again. Lily buried her face in her mother's chest. Mommy, what about the other girl? The one buried in my place. Victoria felt her heart tighten. Even after everything, her daughter still thought of others. We're going to find out who she was. We're going to give her dignity. I promise. 6 months passed since Patricia's arrest. The trial was quick. The evidence was too overwhelming for any defense lawyer to contest. Photos, documents, bank records, testimonies from the orphanage. Patricia was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. On leaving the courthouse, reporters surrounded Victoria asking for statements. She held Lily's hand and said only one sentence. My daughter is home. That's all that matters. The investigation into the girl buried in Lily's grave took 3 months. Detectives tracked records of missing children in Vermont from that time and finally found a match. Her name was Emma. Emma Johnson. She was 4 years old when she died of hypothermia on a freezing November night, the same week as the fire. Her mother, a homeless woman struggling with addiction, had reported the disappearance, but no one searched properly. No one cared enough. Victoria found Emma's mother living in a shelter in Burlington. The woman had recovered from addiction 2 years ago and worked as a cleaner at a hotel, trying to rebuild her life. When she learned she finally knew where her daughter was buried, she cried for hours. I never stopped looking, the woman said between sobs. Everyone told me to give up, that she had probably died, but I never stopped. A mother knows when her child is out there somewhere. Victoria paid for a new burial. A dignified funeral, with flowers, music, and a beautiful headstone with her real name, Emma Johnson. A girl who was never forgotten. Emma's mother attended holding a worn teddy bear, the only toy her daughter had when she disappeared. Lily stood beside her throughout the ceremony, holding her hand. I'm sorry, Lily whispered. She stayed in my place for 5 years. I will remember her forever. That day, Victoria made a decision. The money Patricia had stolen over the years would be recovered through lawsuits. But Victoria didn't want that money back. Not for herself. A month later, they inaugurated the Emma and Lily Foundation, a program dedicated to finding missing children, supporting low-income families, and ensuring that no child would be invisible to the system. The inauguration ceremony took place in the garden of the Greenwich Mansion. There were social workers, police officers, orphanage representatives, journalists, and dozens of families that had already been helped by the Foundation's pilot program. Lily stepped onto the small stage beside her mother. She was no longer afraid to speak in public. She was no longer afraid of almost anything. I spent 5 years thinking nobody wanted me. Her voice was firm, clear, much more mature than her 8 years. 5 years believing the lies they told me. But my mother never gave up loving me, even thinking I was dead. And when I came back, she recognized me instantly. Because true love doesn't forget. True love waits. Victoria cried without caring about the cameras. Lily continued. This foundation is for all the children who are lost right now. For all the Emmas no one looked for. For all the Lilies waiting for someone to believe in them. You are not invisible. You matter. And someone is looking for you. The audience gave a standing ovation. Victoria hugged her daughter on stage, both crying and smiling at the same time. That night, after all the guests had left, Victoria and Lily sat on the garden swing. The same swing where they used to play when Lily was a baby. The same swing Victoria never had the courage to remove. "Mommy." "Yes, my love. Do you think Aunt Patricia will change in prison? Will she truly regret it?" Victoria thought for a moment before answering. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some people change, others don't. But that's not up to us anymore. What's up to us is what we do with our lives from now on." Lily rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "I'm not angry at her anymore. I think at first I was, but now I just feel sorry for her. She had everything and threw it away. She had a family and destroyed it." Victoria kissed the top of her daughter's head. "You're incredible, you know that? You went through all of this and you can still have compassion. You taught me. In the lullaby, remember? Cotton candy dreams, heart of honey. You always said having a heart of honey was more important than having full pockets." Victoria laughed for the first time in a long time. A real laugh, clean, without weight. "Did I say that?" "You did. Every night. I never forgot." The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink. Mother and daughter swung slowly in silence, just feeling each other's presence. 5 years ago, Victoria had buried a daughter who was alive and cried for a death that never happened. Today, she understood that some losses are doors in disguise. That some graves are empty of the right people. That true love crosses any lie, any distance, any time. Patricia tried to erase Lily from the world. But what she didn't understand is that you can't erase a daughter from a mother's heart. You can't erase a mother from a daughter's memory. You can't erase true love with lies, no matter how elaborate they are. Lily had returned. Emma had been found. And the foundation would ensure that no other child would disappear into the shadows of the system. Because in the end, what defines a family is not blood. It's the choice to love, to search, to never give up. And Victoria had never given up.